I still remember the exact moment when I realized my engagement ring was missing. It was a Thursday evening, unseasonably warm for April. I had just returned from a long business trip, exhausted but eager to slip that beautiful 3-carat diamond back onto my finger, a ritual I always performed the moment I stepped through my front door after being away. The ring was too precious, too meaningful to risk losing during my travels, so I always left it locked in my jewelry box, hidden behind a false panel I'd installed myself. Only this time, when my fingers reached for that secret compartment, they found nothing but empty velvet. My heart stopped. I tore through the box, appending drawers, scattering earrings and necklaces across my dresser, convinced I must have misplaced it. But deep down I already knew. Someone had taken it, and I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly who that someone was. Let me back up and explain why my sister Melanie would steal from me, and why 2 years later, the same woman who betrayed me so deeply is now standing in the lobby of my company, begging me for a job. Melanie and I were never what you'd call close growing up. We were 5 years apart, close enough to share a bedroom, but far enough apart that we rarely shared friends or interests. While I was the studious one with my nose perpetually buried in textbooks, Melanie was the golden child, the social butterfly who charmed everyone with her effortless charisma and dazzling smile. Our parents never explicitly favored her, but they didn't need to. The way their eyes lit up when she entered a room said everything. "Alexandra, why can't you be more like your sister?" became a refrain so common in our house that I eventually stopped hearing it. Or at least I pretended to. When I graduated with my MBA and launched my first startup at 26, our parents attended the small office opening with polite smiles and checked watches. 3 months later, when Melanie decided to open a boutique selling overpriced mass-produced clothing she claimed was artisanal, they took out a second mortgage to fund it. "It's just that Melanie needs more help than you do, Alex," my mother explained when I questioned the disparity. "You've always been so independent, so capable. Melanie is more fragile." Fragile. That was the word they always used, as if my sister's emotional outbursts and impulsive decisions were some kind of delicate quality to be protected, rather than the manipulative tactics they actually were. But I swallowed my resentment and focused on building my business, an AI-driven financial analytics platform that had just secured its first round of serious funding when I met Daniel. Daniel came into my life like a sudden burst of color in a grayscale world. He was brilliant, driven, and understood my ambition in a way no one else ever had. 6 months after our first date, he proposed with a ring that took my breath away, a family heirloom, his grandmother's diamond reset in platinum with small sapphires flanking it. "For your eyes," he'd said, touching my face with a gentleness that still makes my heart ache when I think about it. We set our wedding date for 18 months later, giving us time to merge our lives properly. Daniel moved into my condo, and we fell into an easy rhythm of shared mornings and late-night discussions about everything from quantum physics to whether pineapple belonged on pizza. It doesn't, a rare point on which we disagreed. For the first time in my life, I felt completely seen and accepted for exactly who I was. Then Melanie's boutique failed spectacularly. It turned out my sister had been funneling the store's proceeds into a lavish lifestyle, designer clothes, weekend trips to Aspen, a leased BMW she couldn't afford, while neglecting to pay suppliers or even file proper taxes. When everything collapsed, she showed up at our parents' doorstep with 4 suitcases and tear-stained mascara, playing the role of the devastated entrepreneur whose dreams had been cruelly crushed by market forces beyond her control. Our parents, predictably, welcomed her with open arms and sympathetic murmurs. Less predictably, they called me, "Alexandra, your sister needs a place to stay while she figures things out." My mother announced, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. "Your condo has that spare bedroom, and goodness knows you have the financial stability to help family in need." I glanced at Daniel, who gave me a small shrug that said, "Your call." But his eyes held a warning I should have heeded. "How long?" I asked. "Just until she gets back on her feet," my mother replied. "A few weeks, maybe a month or 2. It ended up being 4 months of pure hell. From the moment Melanie moved in, she inserted herself into every aspect of our lives. She'd hover in the kitchen while Daniel and I tried to have breakfast, monopolizing the conversation with stories of her boutique's glory days. She'd borrow my clothes without asking, returning them stained or stretched beyond recognition. She'd use up all the hot water, leave dishes in the sink for days, and constantly complain about the corporate blandness of our decor. But worst of all was how she looked at Daniel. How she'd touch his arm when laughing at his jokes. How she'd conveniently need his help with some minor task whenever I was busy with work. I wasn't imagining it. Daniel noticed too, growing increasingly uncomfortable with her thinly veiled flirtations. Stay with me, because this is where everything started to unravel in ways I never could have imagined. If you've ever had someone you trusted completely betray you, you know the feeling, that sudden drop in your stomach when you realize nothing is what you thought it was. Subscribe now so you don't miss what happens next, because the betrayal I experience goes deeper than you can imagine. Alex, we need to set a firm move-out date, Daniel said one night after Melanie had accidentally walked in on him coming out of the shower. This isn't working. I agreed. The next morning, I sat Melanie down and told her she had 3 weeks to find her own place. Her face hardened into something ugly and unfamiliar. Why are you always like this? She spat. Always so perfect, so together, so much better than everyone else. You can't stand to see me struggling, can you? It makes you feel powerful. That's not true, I replied, keeping my voice level. I've given you 4 months of free housing, Melanie. I've introduced you to people who could help you find work. I've been patient, but Daniel and I need our space back. Daniel, she echoed, her lips curling into a smile that sent ice through my veins. Are you sure it's Daniel who wants me gone? Or are you just threatened because he actually enjoys my company? Because I know how to have fun, unlike some people. I should have thrown her out right then. Instead, I walked away, telling myself she was just lashing out from a place of insecurity and failure. I immersed myself in work, staying late at the office to avoid going home to the tense atmosphere that had engulfed my once peaceful condo. That's when the gaslighting began. Small items started disappearing. My favorite lipstick, a pair of earrings Daniel had given me for my birthday, my passport. When I'd mentioned these things were missing, Melanie would look at me with exaggerated concern. Are you feeling okay, Alex? You've been so forgetful lately. Maybe you're working too hard. Daniel began finding evidence that I'd agreed to things I had no memory of, dinner reservations I supposedly made, messages I'd allegedly sent him. When I insisted I hadn't done these things, Melanie would chime in with, Actually, Alex, you did mention that to me the other day. Don't you remember? I started doubting myself. Was I really that stressed? Was I losing track of conversations, of possessions, of commitments I'd made? I began keeping detailed notes of everything, where I placed items, what I said to whom and when. I felt like I was going insane in my own home. Then came that fateful business trip, 3 days in Seattle to finalize a major partnership deal. I almost canceled, afraid of what might happen in my absence, but the opportunity was too important to miss. So, I secured my engagement ring in its hiding place and left, swallowing my misgivings. When I returned to find the ring gone, something inside me snapped. The fog of self-doubt lifted, replaced by a cold, clarifying fury. I stormed into the living room where Melanie was lounging, scrolling through her phone with casual indifference. Where is it? I demanded. She looked up, eyebrows raised in practiced innocence. Where's what? My engagement ring. The one that was locked in my jewelry box that only you and I knew about. A flicker of something, guilt? Fear, crossed her face before her features smoothed into a concerned frown. Your ring is missing? Oh my God, Alex, that's terrible. Are you sure you put it in the box before you left? Maybe you packed it by accident. Stop it, I hissed. Just stop. I know it was you. What did you do, Melanie? Pawn it? Sell it? Her eyes hardened. You have no proof of anything. Maybe you should consider that your precious Daniel took it. Men leave, Alex. They always do. Even the ones who seem perfect. My blood ran cold. What have you done? Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Where are you? I've been waiting at the restaurant for an hour. Restaurant. We didn't have plans for dinner. I was exhausted from my trip and had told him I'd probably crash early. Another text followed. I guess this is how you want to play it. Fine. We need to talk anyway. I know what's been going on. With trembling fingers, I called him. He answered on the first ring, his voice clipped with anger. Let me guess. Another misunderstanding? Daniel, I don't know what you're talking about. I just got home and discovered my engagement ring is missing. A beat of silence. Your ring is missing? Since when? I don't know. I locked it up before I left for Seattle. Now it's gone, and Melanie is acting strange. He exhaled slowly. Alex, I got a text from you yesterday saying you wanted to have a serious talk tonight. That you'd been reconsidering things. I slid down my spine. I never sent that. Check your phone. It came from your number. I pulled the phone away from my ear and opened my message history with Daniel. There they were. Texts I'd never written suggesting I had doubts about our relationship, that I needed space, that we should talk about our future. When I looked up, Melanie was gone. And so was her BMW from its spot in our building's garage. Daniel came home immediately. We searched the entire condo, but there was no sign of the ring or of Melanie's belongings. She'd cleared out completely, leaving nothing but an empty closet and a note on the kitchen counter. Sorry things didn't work out. I've decided to try my luck in Chicago. Don't try to contact me. We called the police, but they weren't particularly helpful. Yes, the ring was valuable. Yes, we suspected my sister had taken it. But no, we didn't have proof, and with Melanie now across state lines, they considered it a low priority. They suggested we check pawn shops and file an insurance claim. The insurance money wasn't the point. That ring was irreplaceable, a piece of Daniel's family history, a symbol of everything we were building together. Our relationship didn't survive the theft. It wasn't just about the ring, though that was a deep wound. It was the atmosphere of betrayal and mistrust that Melanie had cultivated in our home. Daniel and I tried counseling, tried to recapture what we'd had, but there was always a shadow hanging over us. 6 months after the ring disappeared, so did Daniel from my life. I threw myself into work with a vengeance. My company, Phoenix Analytics, expanded rapidly over the next 2 years. I hired aggressively, secured 3 more funding rounds, and eventually moved our headquarters to a sleek office tower downtown. I bought myself a house in an exclusive gated community, upgraded my wardrobe, and crafted the life of a successful tech CEO, polished, confident, and completely closed off emotionally. I didn't date. I didn't go home for holidays. I maintained cordial but distant relationships with my parents, who seemed to finally realize the depth of their enabling behavior when Melanie abandoned them too, failing to call or visit once she'd left for Chicago. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd started some kind of consulting firm there, supposedly doing quite well for herself. Good for her, I thought bitterly. At least someone benefited from the destruction of my engagement. Then, on a crisp autumn morning 2 years after she'd vanished with my ring and my trust, I walked into the Phoenix Analytics lobby to find her sitting in one of the sleek visitor chairs, clutching a leather portfolio and looking nothing like the confident, carefree Melanie I remembered. This Melanie was thin to the point of gauntness, her once glossy hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, dark circles shadowing her eyes. She wore a suit that had once been expensive but now hung loosely on her frame, as if she'd shrunk inside it. She stood when she saw me, her knuckles white around the portfolio. "Alex," she said, her voice barely audible above the ambient noise of the lobby. "I need to talk to you." I should have walked past her, should have told security to remove her from the premises. Instead, some perverse curiosity made me stop and look at her, really look at her. Beyond the physical changes, there was something different in her eyes. The manipulative gleam had been replaced by something haunted and desperate. "Why are you here, Melanie?" She swallowed hard. "My company failed. I'm broke. I've been trying to find work for months, but," she gestured helplessly, "no one will hire me. My reputation is trash. And you thought I would help you?" I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. "After what you did?" "I know I have no right to ask," she whispered. "But you're my only hope, Alex. I have nowhere else to go." I studied her, feeling nothing but a cold, detached curiosity. "What happened to my ring, Melanie?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I can explain everything. Just not here. Please give me a chance to talk to you properly." For a moment, I considered it, not out of compassion, but out of a desire for closure, for answers to questions that had haunted me for 2 years. Then I remembered Daniel's face the day we realized the ring was truly gone. The way his eyes had dimmed. The way something essential between us had fractured beyond repair. "You have exactly 5 minutes," I said, checking my watch with deliberate slowness. "We'll use conference room 3. And then, regardless of what you say, you'll leave this building and never return." Relief flooded her face, premature relief. She clearly had no idea what was coming. As I led her toward the elevators, I caught my assistant's eye across the lobby. With the smallest nod, I signaled her to alert security. Whatever game Melanie was playing, whatever lies she was prepared to tell, I wasn't going to be manipulated again. This time, I was in control, and I intended to keep it that way. Conference room 3 was deliberately intimidating, all glass and steel, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I often used it for difficult negotiations, placing myself with my back to the view, so that whoever sat across from me would be slightly distracted, slightly dazzled by the panorama behind me. Melanie sat stiffly in the black leather chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked so small in that vast room, so diminished compared to the larger-than-life personality I remembered. The silence stretched between us as I took my time settling into my chair, arranging my tablet and phone with precise, unhurried movements. "Your 5 minutes started the moment we entered this room," I said finally, not bothering to look up. "I suggest you use them wisely." Melanie took a deep breath. The consulting firm I started in Chicago, Radiance Consulting, it was doing well at first. I had some contacts from my boutique days, and I leveraged them to get client work, marketing strategy, primarily for small retail businesses. For about a year, things were good. "I don't care about your business history, Melanie. I care about my ring." Her face flushed. "I'm getting to that. Please, I need you to understand the whole picture." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "For minutes. Everything fell apart 6 months ago," she continued hurriedly. "I'd brought on a partner, Valerie. She seemed amazing, brilliant, connected, charismatic. She brought in bigger clients than I'd ever had access to. We moved to fancier offices, expanded the team." A bitter smile twisted her lips. "Turns out she was falsifying client contracts, inflating our revenue numbers to attract investors. By the time I discovered what was happening, she'd embezzled nearly everything and disappeared. The business collapsed overnight. I was left with all the debt, all the legal responsibility. And this is relevant because I made a terrible mistake when I took your ring, Alex. The worst mistake of my life. And I'm not here just to ask for a job. I'm here to make it right." Despite myself, I felt a flicker of interest. "Go on." "I didn't sell your ring. I pawned it." "Same difference." "No." She shook her head vehemently. "I needed quick cash to get to Chicago to start over. I fully intended to buy it back as soon as I could. I kept the pawn ticket for months, paid the extensions, checked on it regularly." My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. What happened to it? When the business was doing well, I finally had enough to redeem it. I went to the pawn shop, but, her voice broke, there had been a robbery the week before. Several pieces of high-end jewelry were taken, including your ring. The surge of hope that had momentarily lifted my spirits crashed back down. "Convenient. I filed a police report," she said quickly, fumbling with her portfolio. "I have the case number, the detective's contact information. I've been checking with them every month for updates." She pulled out a folder and pushed it across the table. Inside were copies of police reports, correspondence with insurance companies, even a private investigator's business card. Despite my skepticism, it looked surprisingly legitimate. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Melanie continued, her eyes welling with tears. "What I did to you and Daniel was unforgivable. I was jealous and petty and destroyed the best thing in your life out of pure selfishness." 3 minutes, I said, though I'd actually lost track of time. "Why are you here now, specifically? What do you want from me?" She straightened her shoulders, visibly gathering her courage. "I need a job, Alex. Any job. I'll start at the bottom, reception, mail room, janitor. I don't care. I just need something to build from." "Why here?" "There are thousands of companies in this city. Because I've been blacklisted in my industry. Valerie spread rumors that I was the one who committed the fraud. No one in marketing or consulting will touch me. I've applied to over 200 positions in the last 4 months and haven't gotten a single interview." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. And you think working for the sister you betrayed is going to be easier? No, she admitted. It will probably be the hardest thing I've ever done. But I'm out of options. I'm 3 weeks away from being evicted from my apartment. My car has been repossessed. I've sold everything of value I own. For the first time, I looked at her, really looked at her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a cheap knockoff suit. The flashy jewelry she used to love was absent. Her wrists and neck were bare. Even her manicure was grown out and chipped. What makes you think you have anything to offer my company? A flicker of something, pride, perhaps, or determination, sparked in her eyes. I may have failed spectacularly, but before everything went wrong, I was good at what I did. I know how to connect with people, how to build relationships. I understand consumer behavior in ways that your data scientists might miss. I could bring a human element to your analytics. It was a good pitch, polished, despite her obvious desperation. Melanie had always been a natural saleswoman, even when what she was selling was herself. 2 minutes, I said. Tell me why I should trust you. You shouldn't, she replied immediately, surprising me with her candor. I wouldn't in your position. But I've hit rock bottom, Alex. When you have nothing left to lose, you find clarity. I'm not the same person who stole from you. That Melanie was entitled, selfish, blind to the consequences of her actions. This Melanie, she gestured to herself, has learned the hard way what matters. My office phone buzzed. I pressed the speaker button. Ms. Walker, security is in position whenever you're ready, my assistant's voice announced. Melanie's face paled, but she didn't look surprised. She'd known this was likely a setup. Thank you, Diane. I'll let you know. I studied my sister, weighing options, calculating risks. The business part of my brain recognized that hiring her would be foolish. The personal part wanted to throw her out of the building and never see her again. But a smaller, quieter part, the part that remembered building sandcastles with her at the beach when we were children, before competition and resentment corroded our bond, that part whispered something else entirely. 1 minute, I said. Final question. If I were to offer you a position, and that's a massive if, what would you do differently this time? Hope flared in her eyes, quickly tempered by wariness. She knew better than to celebrate prematurely. I'd respect boundaries, she said carefully. I'd understand that this is strictly professional. I wouldn't expect special treatment or forgiveness. I'd work twice as hard as anyone else and accept whatever scrutiny you deemed necessary. And I'd find a way somehow to make amends for what I took from you, not just the ring, but the trust, the relationship. Time's up, I announced, gathering my things. You'll hear from HR by the end of the day. Melanie stood, confusion written across her face. Does that mean? It means you'll hear from HR by the end of the day, I repeated, rising to leave. Security will escort you out. As if on cue, 2 security guards appeared at the conference room door. Melanie gathered her portfolio with shaking hands and allowed herself to be led toward the elevators, throwing one last, desperate glance over her shoulder as she went. I returned to my office and closed the door, needing a moment to process what had just happened. Had I seriously just considered giving Melanie a chance after everything she'd done? My desk phone buzzed again. Your 10 o'clock is waiting, Diane reminded me gently. I'll be right there, I replied, pushing thoughts of Melanie aside to focus on the day ahead. But concentration proved impossible. Throughout meetings, conference calls, and strategy sessions, my mind kept circling back to Melanie and her story about the ring. Was she telling the truth about the pawn shop robbery? About trying to redeem the ring? It seemed far-fetched, and yet the documentation had looked genuine. By late afternoon, I found myself pulling up the security footage from the lobby, watching again as Melanie waited for me. There was no dramatic pacing, no rehearsing of lines. She'd simply sat there, occasionally checking her phone, shoulders hunched, the picture of defeated resignation. I sighed and opened a new email to Vanessa, our HR director. Vanessa, I'd like you to interview Melanie Walker for a potential position in the marketing department. Entry level, probationary period, standard background check. Let me know if you have concerns. Alexandra. I hit send before I could reconsider. Within minutes, my private line rang. Alexandra, it's Vanessa. I just received your email about interviewing. Is this the same Melanie Walker who's your sister? Yes. A hesitant pause. I see. Would you like to discuss this first? It's somewhat unusual to bring family into the company, especially at your level. It's unusual but not unprecedented. And she'll be starting at entry level with the same vetting process as any other candidate. Of course, Vanessa replied carefully. I'll reach out to her today. When would you prefer the interview to take place? Tomorrow morning. And Vanessa, I want you to be extra thorough. No favoritism. If anything, hold her to a higher standard. Understood. After hanging up, I texted my old college roommate Rachel, now a detective with the city police department. Need a favor. Can you verify a police report about a pawn shop robbery? Confidentially. Her response came quickly. Send me the details. No promises, but I'll see what I can do. I forwarded the case number for Melanie's documentation and then tried to return to work, pushing the whole situation out of my mind. That evening, I poured myself a generous glass of Cabernet and carried it out to my back patio. The autumn air was crisp, leaves from my Japanese maple swirling across the travertin in delicate russet spirals. I wrapped myself in a cashmere throw and tried to enjoy the peaceful moment, but my thoughts refused to settle. What was I doing? Why was I even considering helping Melanie after what she'd done? My phone chirped with a text from Rachel. Report checks out. Pawn shop on Dearborn was hit 14 months ago. Several high-value pieces taken, including a 3-carat diamond ring with sapphire accents. Investigation still open but cold. Your sister filed all the appropriate reports as the individual trying to reclaim the item. I stared at the message for a long time. So that part of Melanie's story, at least, was true. The ring had been pawned, not sold outright, and she had been trying to recover it when it was stolen. Did that change anything? She'd still taken it in the first place, still violated my trust, still played a significant role in destroying my relationship with Daniel. Daniel! I hadn't allowed myself to think of him in months, but now his memory flooded back with painful clarity. Last I'd heard, he was engaged to someone else, a yoga instructor he'd met at a wellness retreat. They lived in Portland now. They looked happy in the social media photos I'd tortured myself with before, finally blocking his accounts. My phone rang, startling me out of my melancholy. Unknown number. Hello. Alex. It's Daniel. I nearly dropped the phone. Daniel? Why are you calling me? I got a strange email today, he said. From your sister, Melanie. My blood ran cold. What did it say? That she wanted to make amends. That she'd caused irreparable damage to both of us and wanted to take responsibility. She mentioned something about the ring being stolen in a pawn shop robbery. Yes. I just verified that part is true. I hesitated. She showed up at my office today looking for a job. A low whistle from his end. Wow. That's bold. What did you do? Surprisingly, I didn't have her thrown out immediately. I sent her to HR for an interview. The silence stretched between us, comfortable in its familiarity. We'd always been able to communicate in pauses as much as in words. You're considering helping her, he said finally. Not a question. I don't know what I'm doing, honestly. Part of me thinks I'm being manipulated again, but she seems genuinely rock bottom this time. People can change, Daniel offered quietly. But that doesn't mean they deserve automatic forgiveness or trust. I know, I sighed. I'm not planning to welcome her back with open arms, but I'm curious, I guess, to see if she's really different. Just be careful, he said. You have a generous heart under all that CEO armor. It's one of the things I always loved about you. The past tense stung, despite the years that had passed. I will. Thank you for calling to warn me. Actually, he said, his voice taking on a strangely nervous quality, that wasn't the only reason I called. I'm going to be in town next week for a conference. I thought maybe we could get coffee, catch up. My heart stumbled over itself. You're engaged, Daniel. Not anymore. That ended months ago. He paused. I'm not suggesting anything romantic, Alex. I've missed our friendship, regardless of how things ended between us. I closed my eyes, feeling the night air cool against my face as I considered his words. Coffee sounds nice. Great, he replied, relief evident in his voice. I'll text you the details. Yes. After we said goodbye, I sat staring at the darkening sky, my mind whirling with possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to consider in years. Daniel, single again. Melanie, seemingly changed. The ring, verified as stolen rather than sold. None of this erased the past, but perhaps, just perhaps, it offered a slightly different lens through which to view it. My phone buzzed with an email notification from Vanessa. Interview with Melanie Walker scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll provide detailed assessment afterward. I put my phone away and took a deep breath of the autumn air. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and revelations. For tonight, I would simply sit with the knowledge that sometimes life presents you with unexpected second chances, and the real question is whether you're brave enough to take them. I arrived at the office early the next morning, determined to observe Melanie's interview without her knowledge. Phoenix Analytics had a sophisticated setup for our recruitment process. Observation rooms adjacent to interview spaces with one-way glass that allowed our team to evaluate candidates' body language and responses without creating additional pressure. Vanessa was already waiting for me, tablet in hand, her expression professionally neutral. "Good morning, Alexandra. Everything's prepared for the 9 a.m. interview. Do you have specific questions you'd like me to focus on?" I shook my head. "Treat it like any other interview. I don't want special accommodations, positive or negative." She nodded, her eyes searching my face for any hint of personal investment. "And if she's qualified, then we follow standard protocol. Entry-level position, 3-month probation, regular performance reviews." I paused. "With one addition, whatever department she's placed in, I want weekly reports from her direct supervisor." "Of course." Vanessa hesitated. "May I ask a personal question?" I glanced at my watch. 20 minutes until Melanie was due to arrive. "Go ahead. Are you sure this is a good idea? Mixing family and business can be challenging." "Melanie and I haven't been family in any meaningful sense for years," I replied flatly. "This is a business decision. She has skills that might be valuable to Phoenix. The personal history is irrelevant." Vanessa's slight frown suggested she wasn't convinced, but she knew better than to push. "I'll conduct the interview as requested." I settled into the observation room, declining the coffee Vanessa's assistant offered. My nerves were already jangled enough without caffeine. Through the one-way glass, I could see the interview room, minimalist and modern, with the Phoenix Analytics logo glowing on one wall. At precisely 8:55 a.m., Melanie arrived. She looked markedly different from yesterday, hair neatly styled, makeup skillfully applied to mask the dark circles under her eyes. She wore the same suit but had obviously spent time pressing it. The transformation was impressive, given her limited resources. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded on top of her portfolio, eyes fixed on the door. No fidgeting, no checking her phone, just calm, focused waiting. It wasn't the behavior of someone who felt entitled to the position by virtue of family connection. At 9 a.m. exactly, Vanessa entered, and introductions were made. The interview began standardly enough: background, education, previous experience. Melanie answered clearly and concisely, neither downplaying nor inflating her accomplishments. When asked about Radiance Consulting's failure, she took full responsibility. "Failed to perform proper due diligence on my business partner," she admitted. "I was so excited by the growth opportunities she presented that I neglected to verify her credentials or establish proper oversight mechanisms. The responsibility for that failure is entirely mine." Vanessa made notes. "And what would you do differently in a similar situation?" "Trust but verify. Document everything. Establish clear governance structures from the beginning. And most importantly, never allow myself to be blinded by ambition to the point where I ignore warning signs." It was a good answer, self-aware without being self-flagellating. I found myself nodding slightly. The interview continued with case studies and hypothetical scenarios. Melanie's responses demonstrated solid marketing instincts and a surprisingly nuanced understanding of how data analytics could inform campaign strategy. Clearly, she'd done her research on Phoenix. Then came the question I'd been waiting for. "Ms. Walker, your resume shows a significant gap between your work at Radiance Consulting and now. Can you explain what you've been doing during this period?" Melanie's composure wavered momentarily. "After Radiance collapsed, I spent several months dealing with legal fallout and trying to make things right with clients who had been defrauded. I then began applying for positions across a wide range of industries. While waiting for employment, I've been taking online courses in digital marketing and data visualization to update my skills. And why Phoenix Analytics, specifically? We don't typically hire marketing professionals with retail backgrounds. Here it was, the moment of truth. Would she mention our relationship? Use it as leverage? Melanie met Vanessa's gaze directly. I'm aware that my background isn't a traditional fit, which is why I'm applying for an entry-level position. Phoenix Analytics is revolutionizing how businesses understand consumer behavior. I believe my experience on the client side, understanding what businesses need from data, could provide a valuable perspective. I'm willing to start at the bottom and prove my worth. Not a single mention of me or our connection. Interesting. Vanessa pressed further. Our records indicate that you're related to our CEO, Alexandra Walker. Why didn't you mention this? A flush crept up Melanie's neck. I wanted to be evaluated on my own merits, not on family connections. Alexandra and I haven't been in contact for years, and I wouldn't expect special treatment based on our relationship. In fact, she added quietly, given our history, I would understand if my application was rejected on that basis alone. But I hope my skills and experience might at least earn me consideration. I leaned back in my chair, processing her words. They sounded genuine, not the polished performance of the Melanie I remembered, but something more raw and honest. The interview concluded, and Vanessa explained the next steps in the process. As Melanie gathered her things to leave, she paused, looking directly at the one-way glass as if she could see through it. She couldn't, of course, but somehow she knew I was there. Thank you for this opportunity, she said, addressing the glass. Regardless of the outcome. After she left, Vanessa joined me in the observation room, her expression thoughtful. Well, I prompted. Technically, she's qualified for an entry-level position in our marketing outreach team. Her experience with small business clients could be useful for our SMB division. Her references, the ones we could verify, check out. Vanessa tapped her tablet. However, there's the obvious conflict of interest to consider. I nodded. Your final assessment? If she weren't your sister, I'd recommend hiring her on probation. Since she is, Vanessa shrugged. It's your call. Draft an offer letter, I decided. Entry-level marketing associate, 3-month probation, standard benefits, weekly performance reviews. And Vanessa, no special treatment. If she fails to meet expectations, she goes immediately and without recourse to me. Understood. Vanessa hesitated. Does she know about your meeting with Daniel next week? I stared at her, startled. How did you? He called the office this morning to confirm your contact information. Diane mentioned it to me. She smiled apologetically. Nothing stays secret for long in this building. I sighed. No, Melanie doesn't know, and I prefer to keep it that way for now. The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and decisions. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Diane buzzed my office. Miss Walker, your mother is online too. My stomach tightened. I hadn't spoken to my mother in months, and our last conversation had been strained at best. Put her through. Alexandra, my mother's voice, familiar and fraught with tension. Is it true that Melanie came to see you? I pinched the bridge of my nose. Hello to you too, Mom. Yes, Melanie was here yesterday. She's been having such a difficult time, my mother began, her voice taking on that particular pleading tone she always used when defending Melanie's latest disaster. This business with her partner stealing everything, it's been devastating for her. Your father and I would help, but with his medical bills. I'm aware of her situation. I cut in. She's interviewing for a position here. A sharp intake of breath. You're giving her a job? Oh, Alexandra, that's wonderful. I knew you wouldn't turn your back on family, despite everything that happened. Mom, I interrupted. This isn't about family. If she meets our standards, she'll be offered a position. If she doesn't, she won't. And if she's hired and doesn't perform, she'll be let go like anyone else. Always so cold, my mother murmured, the familiar criticism slipping out before she could catch herself. But I understand you need to maintain your professional standards. I bit back a retort. How's Dad doing? The same. The new medication helps with the pain, but the prognosis hasn't changed. Her voice softened. He asks about you, you know. You should come visit sometime. Guilt pinched at me. I hadn't been home since last Christmas, A brief, awkward visit marked by stilted conversations and careful avoidance of any mention of Melanie or Daniel. "I'll try to come soon," I promised, knowing even as I said it that soon was a flexible concept. "I need to go, Mom. I have a meeting." "Of course. Just be gentle with your sister, Alexandra. She's been through a lot. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up, irritation simmering beneath my skin. Even now, even after everything Melanie had done, to me, to others, to herself, our mother's first instinct was to protect her, to make excuses for her. Some things never changed. The week crawled by. Melanie accepted the job offer with almost embarrassing gratitude, scheduled to start the following Monday. I deliberately arranged my schedule to be out of the office for most of her first week, wanting to give her space to establish herself without my presence complicating matters. And then suddenly, it was Saturday, and I was sitting in an upscale coffee shop downtown, watching the door with ridiculous nervousness as I waited for Daniel. He arrived precisely on time, as he always had. The sight of him, slightly more silver at his temples, a new pair of glasses, but essentially unchanged, hit me with unexpected force. For a moment, I was catapulted back in time to weekend mornings at our favorite cafe, sharing sections of a newspaper and planning our future together. "Alex," he said, his smile warm but cautious as he approached my table. "It's good to see you." I stood, unsure of the appropriate greeting. A handshake seemed too formal, a hug too intimate. We ended up in an awkward half-embrace that left us both laughing self-consciously. "You look great," he said, taking the seat across from me. "Success obviously agrees with you." "Thanks. You look well, too." I gestured to the barista. "Still a macchiato guy?" Some habits die hard. We ordered, and an awkward silence descended. 2 years of separation yawned between us, filled with unasked questions and unspoken regrets. "So," I finally ventured, "your email from Melanie, what exactly did she say?" Daniel pulled out his phone and found the message. "Here, you can read it yourself." The email was brief but devastatingly direct. "Daniel, you don't know me anymore, and you have every reason to delete this without reading further, but I need to tell you something important. The engagement ring, I took it. Alex never lost it or misplaced it. I stole it before leaving for Chicago because I needed money and because I was jealous of what you two had. I pawned it, intending to buy it back later, but it was stolen in a robbery before I could. I destroyed something beautiful between you two out of pure selfishness. I can't fix it, but I wanted you to know the truth. Alex never lied to you. She never betrayed your trust. I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you both. Melanie." I read it twice, my throat tight. "When did you receive this?" "Tuesday evening. I tried calling you right away." I handed his phone back, processing the implications. She sent this before her interview. Before she knew whether I would help her or not. Daniel nodded. "That's what made me think it might be genuine. It wasn't transactional. She wasn't confessing in exchange for your assistance." "Did you respond to her?" "Just a brief acknowledgement. I thanked her for her honesty, but made it clear that what happened between us was more complicated than just the ring." I sipped my latte, gathering my thoughts. "She's starting at Phoenix on Monday. Entry-level position, nothing guaranteed. That's surprisingly generous of you." "Is it? Or am I just setting myself up to be hurt again?" Daniel considered this. "People can change, Alex. Sometimes hitting rock bottom forces a real reckoning. You sound like you're defending her." "No," he shook his head firmly. "What she did was indefensible. I'm just saying that genuine redemption is possible. Rare, but possible." Our conversation shifted to safer topics. His work developing sustainable architecture projects, my company's recent expansion, mutual friends we'd stayed in touch with. It was comfortable, almost like old times, except for the careful way we avoided certain subjects. Our breakup, his failed engagement, my deliberate retreat from anything resembling a personal life. As we were finishing our coffee, he said quietly, "I've missed this. Talking to you. No one else ever really got my obscure science jokes." I smiled despite myself. "Remember when you tried to explain quantum entanglement using salt and pepper shakers at that dinner party? Everyone else was completely lost, but it made perfect sense to you. We were always in sync that way." He hesitated. "Listen, I'm in town until Wednesday. Would you maybe want to have dinner one night? Nothing fancy, just continue catching up. I studied his face, searching for hidden agendas, for the anger that must still linger somewhere beneath the surface. But I saw only openness, and perhaps a hint of the same cautious hope I felt stirring in my own chest. I'd like that, I said finally. Tuesday. I'm avoiding the office on Monday while Melanie gets settled. Tuesday works. He stood, gathering his coat. It's really good to see you, Alex. Whatever else happened between us, I've never stopped caring about you. After he left, I remained at the table, turning my coffee cup in slow circles as I processed our conversation. Would it be foolish to hope for reconciliation? With Daniel, with Melanie, even with myself, the Alex who existed before betrayal hardened me into the person I'd become. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for the opportunity. I promise I won't let you down. Melanie. I didn't respond, but I didn't block the number either. Sunday passed in a flurry of preparation for a major client presentation. I deliberately worked myself into exhaustion, hoping to avoid overthinking both Melanie's first day and my upcoming dinner with Daniel. By the time I fell into bed that night, I was too tired to worry about either. Monday morning, I woke to another text from Melanie. First day today. I know you're avoiding the office because of me. I understand. Just wanted to say I'm grateful, and I'll work hard to prove this wasn't a mistake. Again, I didn't respond, but as I moved through my day, working remotely from a favorite cafe, then taking a long-postponed lunch with a college friend, finally stopping by my accountant's office to sign some documents, I found my thoughts repeatedly returning to Phoenix, wondering how Melanie was faring. Around 4 p.m., I received an email from Jason Camera, the head of our marketing department and Melanie's direct supervisor. First day assessment of Melanie Walker. Punctual, prepared, asks intelligent questions. Completed orientation efficiently and has already started on competitor analysis project. Team reception cautiously positive. No red flags to report. I read it twice, feeling a strange mix of relief and disappointment. What had I expected? That she would implode on day one, validating my worst suspicions, or that she would miraculously transform the department with her brilliance, proving I'd been right to give her a chance? Reality, as usual, was more mundane. Melanie was doing her job. Nothing more, nothing less. I was about to put my phone away when it rang. Rachel, my detective friend. Hey, Alex, got a minute? Sure, what's up? That pawn shop robbery you asked me to look into? There's been a development. I sat up straighter. What kind of development? They caught the guy. Career criminal named Marcus Dawson. He'd been hitting pawn shops across 3 states. They found a storage unit full of stolen merchandise, including, potentially, your ring. My heart stuttered. Are you serious? Don't get too excited yet, she cautioned. They're still cataloging everything, but there was a 3-carat diamond ring with sapphire accents that matches your description. They'll need you to come in and identify it, maybe provide proof of ownership if you have it. Evidence processing takes time, probably next week at the earliest. I'll let you know as soon as they're ready. After we hung up, I sat motionless, struggling to process this new information. If the ring had been recovered, if it was truly the same ring, what did that mean for me? For Daniel? For the narrative I'd constructed around Melanie's betrayal? And more importantly, what would I do with it if it was returned to me? Tuesday arrived with an unexpected autumn rainstorm that drenched the city, turning the morning commute into a snarled mess of traffic and hunched pedestrians scurrying beneath inadequate umbrellas. I'd planned to continue working remotely, but after Rachel's call, I felt a restless energy that my home office couldn't contain. I needed the structured environment of Phoenix Analytics, the familiar rhythm of the workplace to ground me. I arrived just after 10, using the executive elevator that opened directly into the corridor near my office, bypassing the main floor where Melanie would be working. Diane looked up in surprise as I entered, quickly rearranging her expression into professional neutrality. Good morning, Ms. Walker. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. Change of plans, I replied, hanging my rain-soaked coat on the rack. Any fires I should know about? Nothing urgent. Mr. Camera left a report on Melanie Walker's first day, but I'm sure you've seen his email already. I nodded, scanning the stack of mail on my desk. How is the mood on the floor? Diane understood immediately what I was really asking. Curious but professional. There was some initial gossip when people realized your connection, but Mr. Camera shut it down quickly. She's keeping her head down and focusing on her work. Good. I'll be in my office most of the day. I prefer not to take any non-essential meetings. As the door closed behind me, I sank into my chair, suddenly uncertain why I'd felt so compelled to come in. What was I hoping to accomplish? To spy on Melanie? To reassure myself that Phoenix wouldn't collapse with her presence? Or was I simply tired of hiding in my own company? I immersed myself in work, deliberately choosing complex problems that required my full concentration. Around noon, Diane buzzed to remind me about a scheduled video call with our London office. By the time that wrapped up, it was nearly 2 o'clock, and my stomach reminded me I hadn't eaten since a hasty breakfast. I'm going down to the cafe, I told Diane, gathering my tablet. Back in 30, our in-house cafe occupied the mezzanine level, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The lunch rush had passed, leaving just a scattering of employees at the tables, most engrossed in their devices or quiet conversations. I had just collected my salad and was searching for an empty table when I spotted her, Melanie, sitting alone by the window, typing intently on her laptop while picking at a sandwich. She hadn't noticed me yet, and for a moment, I considered retreating to my office with my food. Instead, I found myself walking toward her table. Is this seat taken? She looked up, startled, a flash of panic crossing her face before she composed herself. Miss Walker, no, please. She gestured to the empty chair, hastily closing her laptop. I sat, arranging my food with deliberate precision. How's your first day and a half going? Good. Everyone's been welcoming. Mr. Camera assigned me to the SMB Analytics project. I'm researching competitor offerings. I nodded, taking a bite of my salad to fill the awkward silence that followed. Up close, I could see the strain beneath Melanie's professional mask, the slight tremble in her fingers as she folded her napkin, the tension in her shoulders. He hesitated. Listen, I'm in town until Wednesday. Would you maybe want to have dinner one night? Nothing fancy, just continue catching up. I studied his face, searching for hidden agendas, for the anger that must still linger somewhere beneath the surface. But I saw only openness, and perhaps a hint of the same cautious hope I felt stirring in my own chest. I'd like that, I said finally. Tuesday. I'm avoiding the office on Monday while Melanie gets settled. Tuesday works. He stood, gathering his coat. It's really good to see you, Alex. Whatever else happened between us, I've never stopped caring about you. After he left, I remained at the table, turning my coffee cup in slow circles as I processed our conversation. Would it be foolish to hope for reconciliation? With Daniel, with Melanie, even with myself, the Alex who existed before betrayal hardened me into the person I'd become. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for the opportunity. I promise I won't let you down. Melanie. I didn't respond, but I didn't block the number either. Sunday passed in a flurry of preparation for a major client presentation. I deliberately worked myself into exhaustion, hoping to avoid overthinking both Melanie's first day and my upcoming dinner with Daniel. By the time I fell into bed that night, I was too tired to worry about either. Monday morning, I woke to another text from Melanie. First day today. I know you're avoiding the office because of me. I understand. Just wanted to say I'm grateful, and I'll work hard to prove this wasn't a mistake. Again, I didn't respond, but as I moved through my day, working remotely from a favorite cafe, then taking a long-postponed lunch with a college friend, finally stopping by my accountant's office to sign some documents, I found my thoughts repeatedly returning to Phoenix, wondering how Melanie was faring. Around 4 p.m., I received an email from Jason Camera, the head of our marketing department and Melanie's direct supervisor. First day assessment of Melanie Walker. Punctual, prepared, asks intelligent questions. Completed orientation efficiently and has already started on competitor analysis project. Team reception cautiously positive. No red flags to report. I read it twice, feeling a strange mix of relief and disappointment. What had I expected? That she would implode on day one, validating my worst suspicions, or that she would miraculously transform the department with her brilliance, proving I'd been right to give her a chance? Reality, as usual, was more mundane. Melanie was doing her job. Nothing more, nothing less. I was about to put my phone away when it rang. Rachel, my detective friend. Hey, Alex, got a minute? Sure, what's up? That pawn shop robbery you asked me to look into? There's been a development. I sat up straighter. What kind of development? They caught the guy. Career criminal named Marcus Dawson. He'd been hitting pawn shops across 3 states. They found a storage unit full of stolen merchandise, including, potentially, your ring. My heart stuttered. Are you serious? Don't get too excited yet, she cautioned. They're still cataloging everything, but there was a 3-carat diamond ring with sapphire accents that matches your description. They'll need you to come in and identify it, maybe provide proof of ownership if you have it. Evidence processing takes time, probably next week at the earliest. I'll let you know as soon as they're ready. After we hung up, I sat motionless, struggling to process this new information. If the ring had been recovered, if it was truly the same ring, what did that mean for me? For Daniel? For the narrative I'd constructed around Melanie's betrayal? And more importantly, what would I do with it if it was returned to me? Tuesday arrived with an unexpected autumn rainstorm that drenched the city, turning the morning commute into a snarled mess of traffic and hunched pedestrians scurrying beneath inadequate umbrellas. I'd planned to continue working remotely, but after Rachel's call, I felt a restless energy that my home office couldn't contain. I needed the structured environment of Phoenix Analytics, the familiar rhythm of the workplace to ground me. I arrived just after 10, using the executive elevator that opened directly into the corridor near my office, bypassing the main floor where Melanie would be working. Diane looked up in surprise as I entered, quickly rearranging her expression into professional neutrality. Good morning, Ms. Walker. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. Change of plans, I replied, hanging my rain-soaked coat on the rack. Any fires I should know about? Nothing urgent. Mr. Camera left a report on Melanie Walker's first day, but I'm sure you've seen his email already. I nodded, scanning the stack of mail on my desk. How is the mood on the floor? Diane understood immediately what I was really asking. Curious, but professional. There was some initial gossip when people realized your connection, but Mr. Camera shut it down quickly. She's keeping her head down and focusing on her work. Good. I'll be in my office most of the day. I prefer not to take any non-essential meetings. As the door closed behind me, I sank into my chair, suddenly uncertain why I'd felt so compelled to come in. What was I hoping to accomplish? To spy on Melanie? To reassure myself that Phoenix wouldn't collapse with her presence? Or was I simply tired of hiding in my own company? I immersed myself in work, deliberately choosing complex problems that required my full concentration. Around noon, Diane buzzed to remind me about a scheduled video call with our London office. By the time that wrapped up, it was nearly 2 o'clock, and my stomach reminded me I hadn't eaten since a hasty breakfast. I'm going down to the cafe, I told Diane, gathering my tablet. Back in 30, our in-house cafe occupied the mezzanine level, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The lunch rush had passed, leaving just a scattering of employees at the tables, most engrossed in their devices or quiet conversations. I had just collected my salad and was searching for an empty table when I spotted her, Melanie, sitting alone by the window, typing intently on her laptop while picking at a sandwich. She hadn't noticed me yet, and for a moment, I considered retreating to my office with my food. Instead, I found myself walking toward her table. Is this seat taken? She looked up, startled, a flash of panic crossing her face before she composed herself. Alex, I mean Ms. Walker, no, please. She gestured to the empty chair, hastily closing her laptop. I sat, arranging my food with deliberate precision. How's your first day and a half going? Good. Everyone's been welcoming. Mr. Camera assigned me to the SMB Analytics project. I'm researching competitor offerings. I nodded, taking a bite of my salad to fill the awkward silence that followed. Up close, I could see the strain beneath Melanie's professional mask, the slight tremble in her fingers as she folded her napkin, the tension in her shoulders. You look tired, I said, surprising myself with the observation. A small, rueful smile touched her lips. I didn't sleep much last night. Too nervous about today. The work isn't difficult at this level. It's not the work I'm worried about, she admitted quietly. It's being here. Walking on eggshells, wondering when the other shoe will drop. I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd grown to expect from her, but all I saw was exhaustion and a weary sincerity. "I received an interesting call yesterday," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "From a detective friend. They've recovered some items from a series of pawn shop robberies. My ring might be among them." Melanie's spoon clattered against her coffee cup. "Are you serious, Alex? That's amazing. When will you know for sure?" "Next week, possibly. They need me to identify it." "I hope it's your ring," she said fervently. "I've regretted what I did every single day. If you could get it back, it wouldn't change what happened." "No," she agreed, her gaze dropping to the table. "Nothing can undo that, but it would at least be something tangible restored." I took another bite of salad, chewing slowly as I considered my next words. "Why did you email Daniel before you knew whether I'd help you or not?" She looked surprised by the question. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because he deserved to know the truth." She hesitated, and selfishly, because I needed to say it out loud, or at least in writing what I'd done. To fully own it. "You know we're having dinner tonight." It wasn't a question, but Melanie answered anyway. "No, I didn't. But I'm glad." She met my eyes directly. "I never told you this, but he came to see me before I left for Chicago, after the ring disappeared. He asked me point blank if I'd taken it. This was news to me." "What did you say?" "I lied to his face. Told him he was being paranoid, that you probably misplaced it." Her voice grew thin with shame. "And then I suggested that maybe you'd sold it yourself because you were having doubts about the wedding." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. "Why would you do that?" Melanie's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Because I was horrible, Alex. Because I was so consumed with jealousy and resentment that I couldn't stand to see you happy when my life was falling apart." She wiped roughly at her eye with the heel of her hand. "There's no excuse for it. None." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a reminder about my next meeting. I stood, gathering my barely touched lunch. "I should go." Melanie nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Thank you for the job, for hearing me out, for even considering forgiving me someday." "I haven't said I forgive you." "I know," she said quietly. "I haven't earned that yet, but I'm trying." I left her there, returning to my office with my thoughts in turmoil. The raw honesty of her confession had caught me off guard. The Melanie I remembered would have made excuses, deflected blame, painted herself as the victim. This direct acknowledgement of her actions without justification felt jarringly unfamiliar. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and decisions. At 5:30, I left through the executive exit, avoiding the main floor once again. I needed space to process, to prepare myself for dinner with Daniel without the additional complication of another encounter with Melanie. The restaurant he'd chosen was one we'd never visited together, a new farm-to-table place that had opened after our breakup. Neutral territory. He was already seated when I arrived, rising with a warm smile as the host led me to the table. "The rain finally stopped," I said, for lack of a better opening. "Just in time for sunset," he agreed, gesturing toward the window where the clouds were breaking apart, the sky streaked with brilliant orange and pink. "You look beautiful, Alex." The compliment felt simultaneously familiar and strange, like putting on a well-loved sweater that no longer quite fits. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." We ordered drinks, then studied our menus with unnecessary concentration, both of us stalling the real conversation. "I saw Melanie today," I said finally, setting my menu aside. "At the office cafe." Daniel's eyebrows rose. "How did that go?" "Surprisingly honest. She told me something I didn't know, that you confronted her about the ring before she left." He nodded slowly. "I did. I knew something wasn't right. The way she'd been behaving, the sudden disappearance of the ring, it wasn't hard to connect the dots." "Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair in that familiar gesture I'd almost forgotten. "Because she convinced me you might have been having doubts. That maybe you'd gotten rid of the ring yourself." His expression turned rueful. It sounds idiotic now, saying it out loud. But at the time, with all the tension in the apartment, the strange mood shifts, the missed dinner plans, things that I now realize were all Melanie's orchestration, I was vulnerable to the suggestion. "You thought I'd sell my own engagement ring rather than just talk to you?" The hurt in my voice was impossible to disguise. No, not sold. But maybe put it away, hidden it from yourself because you weren't ready to make the commitment. He reached across the table, his fingers lightly touching mine. I was wrong. And by the time I realized how completely I'd been manipulated, things between us had already deteriorated so much. Our drinks arrived, providing a momentary reprieve from the intensity of the conversation. I took a long sip of my wine, letting the cool liquid soothe my tight throat. I thought you left because you didn't trust me, I said finally. Because you believed I was lying about the ring. And I thought you'd closed yourself off because you were having second thoughts about us. He shook his head sadly. We were both wrong, and too proud or hurt to really talk about it. She got what she wanted in the end. To break us apart. Only because we let her, Daniel replied quietly. We gave her that power. We ordered dinner, the conversation shifting to safer topics, mutual friends, career developments, the changes in the city over the past 2 years. But beneath the casual exchange ran a current of unresolved emotion, questions neither of us quite had the courage to ask directly. Finally, as we lingered over dessert, Daniel set down his fork and looked at me with an intensity that made my heart skip. I need to ask you something, Alex, and I want you to be completely honest. I nodded, suddenly unable to speak past the tightness in my throat. If they find your ring, if you get it back, what does that mean for us? For the possibility of us? The directness of the question startled me. I don't know, I admitted. The ring was a symbol of promises we made to each other. Promises that got broken, regardless of the circumstances. Broken, but not forgotten, he said softly. At least not by me. Daniel, I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he interrupted gently. I know we can't just pick up where we left off as if nothing happened. Too much time has passed. We've both changed. But I've missed you, Alex. Not just what we had, but what we could have built together. The honesty in his eyes undid me. I've missed you too, I whispered. But I'm scared of being hurt again. Of trusting and being wrong. That's fair. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. Maybe we can just start slow. See where it leads. I turned my hand in his, linking our fingers together. I'd like that. The rest of dinner passed in a gentle haze, the tension between us transformed into something warmer, tentatively hopeful. When we stepped outside, the night air was cool and clean after the rain, the city lights reflecting in the puddles like scattered stars. Can I walk you to your car? Daniel asked. I took a car service. I wasn't sure how much wine I'd want with dinner. He smiled. Smart as always. Share my cab. The ride to my house was quiet, comfortable in a way I hadn't expected. When we arrived, he didn't ask to come in, didn't push for more than the evening had already given us. I'm flying back tomorrow evening, he said as the cab idled at my curb. But I'll be back in 3 weeks for another conference. Maybe we could see each other then. I'd like that, I replied, meaning it more deeply than I'd anticipated. He leaned over and pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, his lips lingering just long enough to send warmth cascading through me. Good night, Alex. Good night, Daniel. I watched the cab pull away, feeling strangely buoyant despite the emotional complexity of the evening. Whatever happened next, with the ring, with Melanie, with Daniel, at least I was finally moving forward instead of remaining frozen in the pain of the past. The next morning brought a text from Rachel, evidence processing moving faster than expected. Detective Johnson wants you to come in Friday at 2 p.m. to potentially identify the ring. I'll be there too. Let me know if that works. I confirmed the appointment and then sat staring at my phone, my heart racing. Friday, just 2 days away. After 2 years of resignation, of believing the ring was gone forever, I might actually hold it in my hands again. What would I feel when I saw it? Relief? Vindication? Or would it simply be a painful reminder of everything that had been lost? And what about Melanie? Should I tell her about the appointment? Part of me wanted to keep it private, to process whatever happened without her presence complicating matters. But another part recognized that this was her chance for redemption too, a concrete opportunity to face the consequences of her actions. Before I could overthink it, I texted her. Police may have recovered the ring. I'm going to identify it Friday at 2 p.m. You should be there. Her response came immediately. I'll clear my schedule. Thank you for including me. At the office that day, I found myself watching Melanie from a distance. She was fully engaged in her work, focused and professional. Several times I saw her in conversation with colleagues, her manner neither overly familiar nor artificially reserved. She was simply doing her job, trying to fit in, trying to rebuild. Jason Camera stopped by my office in the afternoon with his promised update. "Melanie's doing well," he reported. "Quick learner, respectful of the team dynamics. Brings an interesting perspective on client needs. Actually, she suggested a modification to our SMB reporting dashboard that makes a lot of sense, highlighting different metrics based on the client's industry instead of using a one-size-fits-all approach. Implement it if you think it has merit," I replied, careful to keep my tone neutral. Jason hesitated. "May I speak frankly, Alexandra?" "Always." The team was skeptical at first. Hiring the CEO's sister raised some eyebrows. But she's earned their respect quickly by being competent and humble. Whatever history exists between you two, she's proving herself on her own merits here. I nodded, oddly pleased by his assessment. "Good to know. Continue the weekly reports, but you can scale back to the standard performance metrics. No need for the detailed behavioral observations." After he left, I found myself smiling slightly. Was I actually proud of Melanie? The thought was so unexpected that it caught me off guard. For so long, my feelings toward my sister had been a toxic mixture of resentment, anger, and betrayal. This fragile new emotion, something almost like hope, felt foreign and precarious. Thursday passed in a flurry of preparation for an important board presentation. I worked late, deliberately avoiding thoughts of the next day's appointment at the police station. When I finally arrived home after 9, I found a package on my doorstep, a small box wrapped in simple brown paper. Inside was a velvet ring box, empty, and a note in Melanie's handwriting. "Whether or not the ring they found is yours, I wanted you to have this. It's the original box from the pawn shop. I kept it, telling myself it was so I could match the ring when I bought it back, but really, I think I kept it as a reminder of what I'd done, what I'd lost. Tomorrow, whatever happens, is another step in making amends. I just wanted you to know I'm grateful for the chance. I sat on my sofa, turning the empty box over in my hands, feeling the worn velvet beneath my fingers. Such a small object to have contained so much meaning, so much pain. For the first time since Melanie had reappeared in my life, I allowed myself to truly consider the possibility of forgiveness, not as an absolution for her crimes, but as a release for myself, a way to finally set down the weight of anger I'd been carrying for so long. Friday arrived with crystalline autumn sunshine, the kind of perfect fall day that seemed designed for new beginnings. I dressed carefully for the appointment at the police station, choosing a structured navy dress that made me feel armored and confident. Melanie was already waiting outside when I arrived, her face pale but composed. She wore a simple black pantsuit, nothing flashy or attention-seeking. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes betraying her nervousness. "Whatever happens in there, Alex, thank you for letting me be part of this. I know you didn't have to." We entered together, and Rachel met us in the lobby, her professional demeanor softened by the quick, reassuring smile she gave me. "Detective Johnson is waiting for us upstairs. They've isolated a piece that matches your description, but they'll need you to formally identify it." The three of us rode the elevator in silence. I could feel Melanie's tension radiating beside me, her breathing shallow and quick. Despite everything, I found myself wanting to reassure her, a strange reversal of the protective instinct she'd always triggered in our parents. Detective Johnson greeted us in a small conference room, a sealed evidence bag on the table before him. After introductions and verification of my identity, he carefully opened the bag and removed a small, clear container. Inside, nestled against black fabric, was a ring. 3 carats, diamond center stone, sapphire accents, platinum setting. My ring. Daniel's grandmother's ring. The symbol of everything we'd lost. "Ms. Walker, can you identify this item?" Detective Johnson asked formally. I swallowed hard. "Yes. That's my engagement ring, the one that was stolen 2 years ago." Beside me, Melanie made a small choke sound, part sob, part relief. "It's really it," she whispered. "They found it." Detective Johnson nodded. "We'll need you to fill out some paperwork, but once that's processed, the ring will be returned to you." He looked at Melanie. "You're the sister? The one who filed the initial report with the pawn shop?" She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "Your report was helpful in establishing the timeline. We've been after Dawson for years. He's responsible for over 30 robberies across 3 states. After completing the necessary forms, we were told the ring would be released to me within 2 weeks, once the case against Dawson was fully processed." As we left the police station, stepping back into the brilliant autumn sunlight, I felt strangely light, as if a chapter that had been left painfully open was finally beginning to close. Melanie stood awkwardly beside me on the sidewalk. "What will you do with it when you get it back?" It was the question I'd been asking myself since Rachel's call. What did this ring mean to me now? What did I want it to mean? "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. "But I'm looking forward to figuring it out." She nodded, understanding the layers beneath my words. I should get back to the office. I told Mr. Camera I'd only be gone for 2 hours. "Melanie," I said as she turned to leave, "thank you for the ring box. And for the note." A small, genuine smile touched her lips. Not the dazzling, practiced charm she'd wielded like a weapon in the past, but something softer and more real. "See you Monday?" she asked, a tentative question in her voice. I nodded. "See you Monday." As I watched her walk away, I pulled out my phone and composed a text to Daniel. "They found the ring. It's really mine. It's coming back to me." His response came almost immediately. "That's wonderful news, Alex. What are you feeling?" I considered his question carefully, searching for the honest answer. "Hope," I finally typed. "For the first time in a long time, I'm feeling hope." I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this, leave a like, and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.